All right, the Gamecocks completed their second and final scrimmage of fall camp. We tell you everything Shane Beamer said and everything we know following Saturday's practice. Locked On Gamecock starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. It is awesome to have you guys along. I'm Chris Marler. I'm your host. I cannot say thank you enough for joining us along for another episode. And thank you for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube, as well as every single streaming platform you can imagine. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Let's jump right into the show. And we got a fun one today. We're going to recap what happened at the scrimmage on Saturday. It is the final scrimmage of fall camp before we get into next week's practice. And as I'm recording this, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But regardless of being on vacation, regardless of location, the grind does not stop because, guys, as I record this, it is post-midnight on Saturday, which means that it is officially game week for week one of the college football season. Week 0, but still, we are finally in game week for some college football. Obviously, Carolina doesn't kick off for another 13 days, but we've got a fun show. Like I said, we're going to talk about the scrimmage, talk about the quarterback situation, what Shane Beamer said, and also talk about a little bit of a uni reveal, an alternate uniform and a retro throwback uniform that was revealed earlier today on social media. Let's get right into it, and let's talk about a topic that continues to be brought up every time it seems like South Carolina focuses on this position or has a scrimmage or something happens in camp at all, and that's the quarterback position. So more news today, I guess, that Shane Beamer was asked about this in his post-scrimmage press conference and post-practice press conference about who the starter is going to be, if anyone separated themselves in the quarterback position, because, as I told you guys a week ago, Robby Ashford flashed was a quote that took South Carolina social media, it felt like, by storm. And listen, it's the most important position in all of sports, and it's the one that's most talked about and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, that is going to be something that is speculated on and looked at closely and overthought and overcomplicated by everyone involved, not just on the coaching staff, but fans especially. So I want to talk about this because he was asked about today, and he said, we're not ready to name a starter yet. And this is something we have seen and talked about multiple times. Robby Ashford said last week that Dowell Loggins said directly to him he didn't know who was going to start week 1 against ODU. And Shane Beamer said again today. He said he did say the only separation you're going to start seeing from the roster standpoint is Tuesday at around 8 a.m. They're going to talk to some guys about who's going to go to the scout team. But one thing about South Carolina that they do that's very different than a lot of teams, especially in the SEC, is if you're on a scout team, that there's very minimal parts of scout team that are involved in pregame prep, according to Shane Beamer. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but I say that to talk about this. The comment and quote from Shane Beamer that Robby Ashford flashed, it was taken with and ran a week ago. He said in this post-game press conference or post-practice press conference, a lot of P's in there, that both quarterbacks flashed. That tells me two things, guys. Okay. One, this is, as I'm learning, what Shane Beamer coach speak is. Flashed. Okay. That's, he's used that 2 times in 2 opportunities about the only 2 scrimmages you've had about the quarterbacks. Now about both of them. I think that we've talked about this last week. Robby Ashford is going to be a good quarterback for this team this season. He will have packages for him. Maybe he will start. Who knows at this point? Right? Sure. Maybe he will start a game. I don't know. It's a long season. But here's what I feel like I do know, and that is this. When you talk about quarterbacks with people, there tends to be a sky is falling overreaction no matter who is talking about it. It's one of the reasons why ESPN is still somehow in business. You can have people show up at Monday morning at 7 to 10 a.m. screaming and hollering at each other on camera about Dak Prescott and whatever other quarterback situation you want to overreact to. In this specific case with South Carolina's quarterbacks, it seems very obvious to me that a lot of times you talk about the backup potentially getting reps. on a team and potentially challenging for the starting position, it's because the starter is coming down here and you're meeting them somewhere in the middle. It feels very clear from what Shane Beamer has said and anyone close to fall camp has reported on that the backup quarterback being here and the starting quarterback being above him right here, it feels like the floor is just getting closer to the ceiling because it's elevated at their position with talent, with depth, and experience, obviously. And it doesn't feel like the starter is losing any sort of ground because of his play being poor. It feels very obvious to me. You guys tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm crazy or whatever. And again, all of this is still a good thing. You get as much competition in as possible during fall camp, right? Like the way the calendar sets up, it's a little bit weird with college, right? Because you have spring ball and then you're gone for a while, and then you come back and you're not allowed to have any practices over the summer, right? So you'll do 7-on-7 stuff and you work against air and all that kind of stuff, learn the playbook, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that I feel like when you come into fall camp, you need to get as much good competition as possible. At no point has Shane Beamer or anyone else associated with this team and the coaching staff said LaNorris Sellers has done, he's made mistakes, he's looked bad doing this, or he's looked, not confident doing this. There's not any verbiage or lingo or coach speak that they're even throwing out, it seems like, about him doing a remotely poor job. It is, I'm not saying it's rave reviews, but it hasn't been any bad reviews at all. It feels like there hasn't been even reviews. So I think that Robby Ashford and him getting more and more reps, whether it's first and second team, or first or second team, I think it's still only a good thing for LaNorris Sellers. And I think it's still only a good thing for this team. And I mean, this specific team going into the 2024 season. One, you need as much depth as possible. How many times have we seen a backup quarterback have to come in and play at some point during a season, right? And in this situation, you've got two guys that are freak athletes that are really, really good, and they're going to be utilized in the run game. Dowell Loggins is a smart enough and more than competent enough play caller and OC where he is going to get both these guys involved. So I don't think it's anything that like the longer it goes on, I understand the not concern, but the question or wonder if LaNorris Sellers might be like losing his footing as the starter. But I just don't think it's true. I think you'll see both players play in multiple games throughout the season. But when they tee that thing up against ODU in 2 weeks and 13 days, I fully expect to see LaNorris Sellers take the field with the first team offense. Now, that being said, what does Robby Ashford provide? He provides a quality amount of depth. And we'll talk more about that as we get closer, and we'll talk more about what Shane Beamer said about this position specifically. But again, I'm telling you, and maybe I'll be wrong. There's a few people in the comments that have pointed out several things that I've been wrong about. Usually it's my hat choice and my word and name pronunciation, which is very fair about that. But I'm telling you, I don't think that any of this news is bad about Sellers or that saying that Sellers has been playing or underperforming during fall camp. You just haven't seen it. Anyway, so that is, be very careful using the word controversy. I put it in here and I put it next to a question mark. And the only reason that I didn't put quotes in there, is because I honestly forgot to do it. It should be in quotes because I don't think it's a real thing, guys. Like there should be quotes around controversy because it's one of the more overused and over exaggerated terms, I feel like, with football in general, but there's not a quarterback controversy at the most core level with this quarterback situation. You're just adding more and more solid depth. So I keep seeing the word used, at least, but of course it's on social media. I don't think there's any QB controversy. I think that both of these players are playing very, very well so far through fall camp, and that's something you really need to see. And it's also something you really want to see because you're replacing the most talented, physically talented quarterback you've had in the last almost 40 years, right? Like we brought this up before. It's not Connor Shaw in terms of like, dude never lost a home game, like never lost Clemson, maybe the best winner in program history. But from a physical tool standpoint, Spencer Rattler is the best quarterback you've had in this program for, the last 30 or 40 years. And that says a lot about how good of a talent that kid is. You want to have more depth this year replacing that. You want to have more options. You want to also have iron sharpening iron as much as possible leading into that first game. You only get so many practices, guys. I think in season, it's still like, what, 20 hours a week you're allowed to have? So with the team, I think it's only beneficial. And I think that Shane Beamer has to love the fact that both these guys are playing and competing so hard and so well. So that is all for our first part of the show. We're going to get into more direct quotes, exactly what Beamer said when we come back. But before we do, I do want to talk to you about our good friends once again at the Game Time app. Guys, Game Time app is awesome. And we are really getting into the nitty gritty of how close we are to the season at this point. The thing with the Game Time app is, like, it's awesome to be able to plan ahead. It's awesome if you want to go out, go get your tickets early. But Game Time app and the Game Time crew over here is changing in the most dynamic way possible the way you can successfully buy tickets without, like, fraud. You get assurance on it. You get money back guarantees if you find better prices somewhere else. You have last minute deals constantly. You can find deals in a specific section of a stadium. I keep telling you guys, if you want to make sure you're in the shade at Willie B, if you're going to be like in one side versus the other, or you're not in the heat all day or in the direct sun all day, you can find those as well. It also has a picture of your direct and specific seat and view from your seats before you buy. And my favorite thing, I bring it up each and every single time, the all-in pricing, man, is just the coolest thing ever. It is an incredible thing that no other ticket company, I feel like, is really doing, especially up front. How many times in this day and age are you buying something online? If it's groceries, if it's ordering a meal online or something else, like being it from Amazon or whatever, all the extra fees that are tacked on. So by the time you get to your actual purchase point, you have a different number than you had before. Not the case with Game Time app, guys. You get all-in pricing up front, tells you your exact price right away. So listen, make sure you get on the Game Time app, download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account, redeem the code. It is LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, make sure you stick around. We'll be back with some direct quotes from Shane Beamer after today's scrimmage and what they might mean, as well as an injury update as well. Don't go anywhere, guys. All right, welcome back in, guys. We're going to talk more about the final scrimmage at fall camp. But before we do, listen, I want to say thank you again for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. But for your second listen, make sure you're enjoying Locked On College Football, the podcast here from our parent company, Locked On. Spencer McLaughlin's the host. He does an incredible job, get you ready for an exciting season that is just days away at this point. We talk about discussion on the upcoming season, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, listen, this upcoming week, we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to get more and more in depth with what this team is going to look like. And I think from a functionality standpoint, what they're going to look like in terms of personnel and who's going to be where on the depth chart, which we will get all that information coming up. We're going to talk to some people close to the situation. Also, other guys that cover the Gamecocks as well around the Columbia area in the state of South Carolina. So going to be a fun couple of weeks because we are so close to the actual season. I'm getting fired up, as I've told you guys a bazillion times. So here is what we're going to talk about now. It's and Beamer brought up the fact after the scrimmage day, I think it was around 6 p.m. He finally met with the media, and he got into the ins and outs of what took place on the practice field today. So I want to just read you what he has said directly. If you haven't seen the video of it or didn't watch the press conference or whatever, and then just give you my take on it and recap the day as a whole. First and foremost, I do also want to talk about the injuries. One of the things he said that stood out, and we'll get to the exact quote, but the injury standpoint, and I specifically haven't brought this up yet because it feels like a Bloody Mary situation. Like you don't want to walk in, or a Beetlejuice situation. Like you don't want to say it 3 times and have it pop up, right? You don't want to jinx anything. But it has been noticeable how much healthier this team has been versus last year especially. And the reason I'm bringing it up, so don't get mad at me, is because Beamer brought it up. And you had about 4 or 5 guys out today earlier in practice. A couple DNs, a couple guys banged up. One of the names, and the first one I went and immediately looked to was Rocket Sanders, who was not held out. He was full go, got rave reviews as well. But that's huge. And Beamer even said, listen, from where we were last year to this year, night and day from a standpoint of injuries. And that's something you love to see. Because we talked about it earlier, like last week, I think, like you see what's happening at Texas. It's the nature of this game. It's the nature of the sport. And it's the nature of what's happening, especially in fall camp. And it's like, it's been a while since you've been, banging bodies up there. Probably a better way to phrase that. But, full contact and not just in shells or shorts and T-shirts and whatnot. Like, it's been a while since these guys have been full pads and full go and full contact. So I think South Carolina, from just what I've known and seen around the rest of the league, covering it for other platforms and stuff and other sites, you got to really love where you are right now. It feels like they are in a situation in very rare air with the lack of injuries. And you love to see that. That's all I'm going to say on it, because I don't want to jinx it or anything like that, like I said. But it also feels like there's been I don't know what it would be. And I don't want to speculate on anything like that, but I do want to give credit where I think credit is due with Shane Beamer and the staff, because it is very noticeable in terms of the difference of where you were last year with injuries going into the season versus this year. And it feels like there was an adjustment that was made this offseason versus last season, or this preseason versus last preseason going into the year, to make that change in a positive way for the team. So, tip of the cap. We won't talk about injuries anymore. We'll just call it the I word moving forward. So, all right, this is what Beamer had to say. First and foremost, got a lot of plays in today, a little over 100 plays again today. Wanted to make this as game-like as possible. As I continue to say, I'm always going to be on my soapbox. We don't get a preseason game or a scrimmage against another team in college football. You have to make these as game-like as possible. So, love that, right? I keep saying it. I said it last week. I love it more than anything for the defense. You want the reps to come out there, especially at quarterback and offense. Get as much of those guys as many reps as possible, because and a receiver specifically, because you talk about like you're replacing every single dude there. So you want to have all of those reps and as many reps as possible. But I love, from a conditioning standpoint, and from where this is, I don't think South Carolina is going to go out there trying to run 100 plays, right? I just don't. But that defense is going to face teams this season that are looking to put up 85 plus plays per game. Lane Kiffin is one of them. Kalen DeBoer will probably be up there as well when they play Alabama. We'll see what I don't know what to expect from Oklahoma in this new offense now that Levy's gone. But you're going to see guys that are going to go out there, and OCs and play callers that are trying to just throw out as many plays as possible in order to score as many points as possible. So I love that from the practice standpoint. It's a phenomenal job and attention to detail of Beamer and the staff. More on how the scrimmage was planned out to be a game. This is what he said. This is from our friends at Big Spur. They do a tremendous job. I encourage you guys to go check them out. They are fantastic. They do such a great job. But again, more from the post-game presser. Last week, we got a lot of plays in the run. We got a lot of plays run in the scrimmage last week, but not really game-like in the sense of that we got 130 plays run in an hour and a half. You were not going to be in a stadium for an hour and a half. We did everything just like a game. Love that. The pregame schedule that we have, the pregame schedule that we will have on August 31st when we are at the hotel, we went through that. Identical other than just being at the hotel. Went through pregame warm-up routines just so they can get a feel for that. Went through coming in off the field after pregame warm-ups, going to the locker room like you do. We come out the tunnel after 2001, played Sandstorm. We got all of our plays run. We had TV timeouts today where guys could get used to there being a change of possession. There's probably going to be a lot of TV timeout where there's probably going to be a TV timeout where it would be a 3-minute break. We had crowd noise in there at times. During TV timeouts, we played videos on the board, had a halftime, tried to make it as game-like as possible. Overall, with the scrimmage, I was pleased. I don't want to over-romanticize what I just read, but the attention to detail that Shane Beamer just laid out there for you is different than a lot of places. They're sure there's going to be people coming in and implementing something for game day feel and going out like and running practices where it's like, hey, I want to make sure you guys know that we do this for our warm-up lines. And then, and then we'll get in the game. This level of attention to detail. He just walked you through every single possible game day thing that could happen outside of being like physically being at the team hotel. That is, as somebody that had like you talk about covering the SEC for a while and you watch Saban, you watch Kirby Smart, and this like laser focused, no stone left unturned attention to detail. That is really, really impressive. Really impressive. Not all schools are doing that, guys. And maybe y'all don't think this is a big deal for me, but I know, like, listen, when I played, especially, and you guys are probably the same way, like I would have bad dreams the night before that I woke up late for a game or I rolled out of bed and all of a sudden it's like first pitch or because I played baseball or whatever. And like in situations like that, being as comfortable and familiar with the process and the day-to-day thing of what you're going to do, like step by step, love that. Love that. Now we'll get on to the actual performance on the field. So he talked about the defense. He said defensively they thought they played really well, continue to make strides and get better. We played most of our guys that are going to be playing against ODU. They got a lot of plays today, whereas our starters did not play as much last week. They played quite a few today, so they will be in good physical condition. They need to play in order to play however many plays it takes against ODU on August 31st to hopefully win that football game. Got a lot of plays run with our top guys. Defensively, thought they did a lot of really good things. Flew around, tackled well. Disappointing thing, we gave up some third and long conversions defensively where they should have been off the field. We gave up an explosive pass or explosive run or something like that on third and long, which can't happen. We dealt with that at times last season. We have really been good about giving up explosives, and we didn't necessarily give up explosives. It was a missed tackle and a guy runs for a first down. We just have to get better about getting off the field on third downs. Not many. I think we had 4 of those. We had some instances like that where we didn't get off the field. He counted 4, by the way. Overall, I think it's expected, right? Like, it's not the end of the world. He sounds pretty not overly concerned about it. If you watch the presser especially, he looked – it might be the calmest that I feel like I've seen Shane Beamer since he's been at South Carolina. He seems very, very comfortable in his own skin, which is usually a good sign from a head coach because they feel comfortable with what they have. And they know, as the one who's holding all their cards, I'm not saying they're necessarily being played close to the vest, but he knows better than anybody that what he has. And it feels like he just seems a lot more calm going into this year. I'll just say that. And again, also, you talk about giving up 4 big plays. I think the main thing I got out of that is the defense. The expectations for this defense seem a lot higher than before, right? Like, I think, like, all the way around it, however you look at it, it is very clear this is going to be the strength of the team. And the secondary especially is going to be really good. And I think you have some great leadership and some freak athletes at linebacker that a lot of people are going to start knowing the names. You had 2 of those guys last week that were put, I think it was the Butkus Award watch list, preseason watch list, and you had Demetrius Knight on one of them. You also had Debo Williams, of course. Just a lot of talent on this team that I think people are going to start to know the names of those guys pretty soon. Defensively, again, it's going to be your strength. All right, offense, the more interesting and I think intriguing part of the team that everyone wants to know. I thought we moved the ball pretty well. This is from Beamer, of course. Too many negative plays from an offensive standpoint. When I say that, I'm talking about the first group, second group, third group, everybody. In totality, if you look at the offense with some guys that we were trying to get better as quick as possible, we had some struggles in regards of tackles for loss, some penalties, things like that, where we have a drive going and go backwards. Thought coming out of halftime that we had was really proud, particularly the offense, the way they responded and put together some drives. We had a 2-minute drill at the end with LaNorris and Robby both, and both of those resulted in being able to kick a field goal to win the game. Huge. Love it. And you got both guys. Again, I don't feel like either one of these situations with the quarterback is that Sellers is playing bad. I think it's just that both these guys have really elevated their game because of the competition that they're in right now. I like that a lot. He did go on to talk about a little bit with the kicking game. He said, I know last week the guy was kicking the crap out of the ball, and he continues to. Alex Herrera did a nice job. William Joyce, I believe, got in there and kicked some. Mason Love got in there and kicked some. I feel like we have gotten better there. We really wanted to come in today and be able to throw and catch a little bit. Coming today, if you say, okay, we kind of know who our top couple running backs are, let's get these other guys some carries and see what they can do. So fast forward on this, right? And this is the last thing I'll say. This is all from Beamer. And I know this is, we're just going through the transcript of it because I know that not everyone watched the press conference. I urge you to do so, man. It's, honestly, and stuff like this, it is engaging. It's fun to hear what Beamer has to say directly after one of those practices. He did such a tremendous job with it. But specifically talking about Rocket Sanders, he opened up a little bit about that because Rocket Sanders is a guy that was held out of last week's scrimmage in their first fall scrimmage of the season. And I think a lot that made a lot of, not a lot of people, it made people a little uneasy, including me, because you look at this, you're like, God, man, what an addition! Like the kid was an all SEC running back 2 years ago, banged up a year ago, comes in here, works his ass off, excuse my language, in the off season, loses weight, gets down like below 230. It stays in Columbia the whole time, working out with his offensive line, all that kind of stuff. This kid's done everything he can to get in shape. So when I saw last week that he wasn't in the first team offense, I admittedly was like a little bit concerned, like just because you're like, oh, man, I hope it's in the thing like where they're delayed. I think I even said on here, I was like, well, if he's not full go week one, it's a long season, they'll be fine. He was full go today. He looked really good. The exact quote from Beamer about him was he's a pro. Ran the ball hard. That is huge with this team. And then the other thing was that he brought up was like he is a pro. He talked about him fully, like his full game as running back. Because nowadays, especially if you want to be an every down back, you need to be able to catch the ball in the backfield. You need to be able to block and pass pro. You also need to be able to run the ball between the tackles, especially in this league. Rocket Sanders can and did. He can do all those things, and he did all those things today in the scrimmage. I love the part about the pass pro thing too, because you're probably still going to have some, like early on in the season, you're probably still going to have some, I don't want to say issues, but probably some lapses with some of the new bodies up there. You're going to throw up there in the offensive line, and also with a first-time starter quarterback, most likely with LaNorris Sellers. So being able to have an extra guy that comes in there that you can keep him on the field and have to have a linebacker account for that guy, whether it's in a spy or whatever, that's huge. Like I'm not saying he's going to ever be used as a decoy, but him being able to add extra strength to protect the quarterback and be able to be involved in as many plays as possible, you've got good depth that you brought in at the running back position this offseason in the portal. But if you can keep that kid on the field as many plays as possible, I think that's the ultimate, like that's where your highest ceiling of success most likely will be. I think we're all probably kind of on board with that. The depth is great at running back. It's awesome. And I think Adam's going to be good. And you got other bodies that you can put out there. But I think that if you want to see the full potential of this offense and from like putting points on the board to turning out yards, and then the thing that I keep bringing up, guys, is like late in games, they're going to get into a situation where they have to put somebody away. And when you have the ability to be able to put somebody away and you have a guy like Rocket Sanders who's that size on top of Robby Ashford, on top of LaNorris Sellers, and you can lean on people with an offensive line that's able to get some push, that is what I want to see more than anything at some point this season. They're going to jump up and get somebody. I've said it a bazillion times. I hope they can impose their will at times. And it sounds like, they might have struggled a little bit. It didn't sound like it was all from the first team or anything like that. And here's the thing too, whenever this happens with inter-squad scrimmages and all that kind of stuff, it's like a spring game, right? It's like, oh man, the offense looked great. And then it's like the other side is like, all right, well, is the defense bad? This offensive line is still working at the kinks. So we've talked about this. We talked about Cole Cuba a couple weeks ago. It'll be very interesting to see who the final pieces are, right? And because I don't think it's going to be like, hey, who are the 5 most talented, highest ranked recruits? Best people in the sorry, Google just started talking. I about freaked out. Who are the highest ranked recruits, the best potential, NFL draft guys, whatever. It's not going to be that. It's going to be the 5 best players that fit the best with each other. So I'm excited for that. Sorry, Google just freaked me the blank out with the in this Airbnb that I'm at right now. So anyway, that being said, Rocket Sanders, I really look forward to that. I don't think that you have a huge issue with the offensive line stuff. They're going to work out those kinks and iron out any of those, those things and issues. The biggest thing also of that is that defensive line is going to be a strength for you. And that might have also contributed to what happened today. So that is all we have from Shane Beamer. Like I said, there's more quotes and everything like that he talked about. I urge you guys to go check out the press conference and listen to more of the clips of what he said, because he did a phenomenal job of laying out exactly what we saw. Now, before we close out today's show, we have just one final segment. It'll be very quick, and it's going to be the news that was broke on social media today of an alternate uniform reveal from South Carolina. We'll get to that, and then we will close out today's show. More coming next on Locked On Gamecocks. All right, guys. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you had a phenomenal end to your week and start to your weekend. Like I said, this is going up late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. We are officially in the first game week of the season and week 0, so that should be a ton of fun. But the last thing we're going to get to earlier today on Saturday, South Carolina, the video department, man, is so undefeated when it comes to putting out incredible content from South Carolina. And whether it's like Justin King, who just he's the best in the business, and I don't think it's close. Like he is. I hate to use this example, guys, but he's like the Kirby Smart of video content. It's unmatched with anyone else, and it's also crazy because I've seen his work for such a long time. I used to work at Saturday Down South right before I got there, and when I worked there, and it's like there's so much of the stuff you see now. I feel like is created on the heels of the stuff that he kind of innovated. So anyway, I can talk about how great of a job he does all day. It's great stuff. But they unveiled a new alternate uniform. It is a throwback to the George Rogers era from the late 70s. Obviously, he won the Heisman in 80. And so it is a very clean look. I'm not going to post it on here because I don't know how to do that in our Locked On StreamYard, I'll be honest, but make sure you go check it out. We've reposted it on our Twitter, Locked On SC, and it looks good. Like a lot of times this is like a big miss, but this looked really good. Clean block C, old school logo, the stars on both sides of the stripes, down the middle of the helmet, it's got the black and garnet stripes. The one that I saw had the all garnet face mask, which was like, it just, everything about it just looked tough. And as I'm saying that, I can't remember if Carolina always wears a garnet face mask. So if they do, I feel stupid. But at the same time, it's not something that I've noticed. It just looked really, really good. And then you had like everything with like the pants striped on the side, white pants, obviously garnet jersey with a white collar, and then you have the star and then the C logo and South Carolina emblem on each side of the hips. It looks really, really good. So they did a tremendous job with that. A lot of times, especially in this day and age of social media, man, I always say this, we're a nation of haters. People just love to be mad about something. People love to get pissed off about whatever and then crap on stuff whenever they can, especially on social media. Did not see any negative reviews on these. They looked really, really, really good. So kudos to this, to the program and also to Under Armour for putting out a really, really good product. They're going to be available. I think they're going to be wearing them on the 21st for the game against Akron. So it looks really good. So kudos to them. That is all for our show today. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your late Saturday evening. If you're listening to this after church on Sunday or whatever, or brunch, what have you. Hope you guys have a phenomenal close out to your weekend. And I appreciate you guys joining us. Remember, before you go, I appreciate you guys making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen every day. For your second listen, I'm going to give you another one. Check out Locked On SEC with my good buddy Chris Gordy. Does a tremendous job covering all things SEC football. Love Gordy to death. He's the one that we had on my very first show on here. Helped me through the whole first show jitters, all that kind of stuff. He does a great job covering all the SEC from that show. Also, make sure you check out Locked On College Football as well. It is hosted by our buddy Spencer McLaughlin. Does a great job. Gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron, talking about everything from NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, blah, 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 all that stuff. So make sure you check that out. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks again, guys. Y'all have a great rest of your afternoon.